everyone, and welcome back to Learning English with Podcast Conversation. I'm your host, Tony, and today we're tackling a topic that, honestly, I think everyone struggles with at some point. That sneaky little voice in our heads that whispers doubts and holds us back from achieving what we truly want. It's that internal monologue that says, you can't do it, or you're not good enough. Today we're going to talk about how to silence that voice. And joining me to unpack this really important subject is our wonderful guest, Jenny. Jenny, it's so great to have you back on the show.
Thanks, Tony. It's fantastic to be here again. And you've hit the nail right on the head. That voice. Oh, it's quite the character, isn't it? Sometimes it feels like a very persistent, albeit unhelpful friend, who's always there, ready to offer unsolicited and often negative advice. I'm really excited to dive into this because it's something I've personally dealt with a lot, and I know many of our listeners probably have too. It's a universal experience.
Absolutely, Jenny. So let's start by defining what we mean by this voice that holds you back. Is it just self-doubt, or is it something more? How can our listeners recognize it when it pops up in their own minds?
That's a great question, Tony. I think it's often more than just simple self-doubt, although self-doubt is definitely a big part of it. This voice is really our inner critic. It's that part of our mind that judges us, criticizes us, and often tries to keep us safe by preventing us from taking risks or stepping out of our comfort zones. It manifests in many ways. Maybe it's the thought, don't even try, you'll just embarrass yourself when you think about starting a new hobby. Or, why bother applying for that job? You're not qualified when a great opportunity comes up. It could even be, everyone else is better than you, after scrolling through social media. It often shows up as procrastination too. When you have a big task, and suddenly you feel this urge to clean your whole house instead, that might be the voice of fear telling you to avoid the challenging thing.
Wow, that's so true, Jenny. Especially the procrastination part. I sometimes find myself suddenly needing to organize my sock drawer when I have an important deadline. It's like my brain is trying to trick me. So why do we even have this voice? Where does it come from? Is it something we're born with, or do we develop it?
That's a fascinating point, Tony, and a really deep question. There are a few theories. From an evolutionary perspective, our brains are wired to keep us safe. In ancient times, being too adventurous could mean danger, right? So caution was a survival mechanism. This voice might be a remnant of that, trying to protect us from perceived threats, even if those threats are just social embarrassment or failure in a modern context. Beyond that, our personal experiences play a huge role. If we were criticized a lot as children, or if we had a bad experience when we tried something new, our brain learns to associate trying with pain or disappointment. Societal pressure also contributes. We see perfect images everywhere, and our inner critic uses those comparisons to tell us we're not good enough. So it's a mix of nature and nurture, I'd say.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not necessarily trying to be mean, it's just trying to protect us, even if its methods are a bit unhelpful sometimes. But what's the real impact of this voice on our lives if we let it control us? What do we miss out on?
Oh, the impact can be huge, Tony. If we constantly listen to that voice, we miss out on so much. We don't try new things. We don't pursue our dreams. We don't speak up for ourselves. It can lead to a significant drop in self-confidence, anxiety, and even depression in some cases. We might stay in jobs we dislike, avoid meeting new people, or never pursue that passion project we've always dreamed of. Think of all the amazing experiences, connections, and personal growth that are just waiting for us beyond the comfort zone that the voice tries to keep us in. It's like living life with the brakes on, always holding back your full potential. You only ever experience a fraction of what you're truly capable of.
That's a really powerful image, living life with the brakes on. It makes me think of all the times I almost didn't try something, like starting this podcast, because of that nagging feeling. So how do we start to identify this voice more consciously? Because sometimes it's so subtle, it just feels like my own thoughts.
That's the first crucial step, Tony, awareness. You need to become a detective of your own thoughts. When you feel that hesitation, that sudden urge to stop or avoid something, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, is this thought truly helpful? Is it based on facts? Or is it a fear? Often, the inner critic's voice has a specific tone, sometimes harsh, judgmental, or even very sarcastic. It's different from a calm, rational voice that might offer constructive criticism. Pay attention to how your body feels, too. Does your stomach tighten? Do your shoulders tense up? These physical cues can often signal that your inner critic is at work. One simple trick is to try to name it. Give your inner critic a silly name, like Mr. Worry or Ms. Doubtful. When you hear the thought, you can say, "Oh, there goes Mr. Worry again." This helps you create a little distance from the thought, so it doesn't feel like you are some take your absolute truth.
Haha, Mr. Worry. I love that. It makes it less intimidating, almost a bit comical. So once we've identified it and maybe even named it, what's next? Do we just tell it to shut up? Is it that simple?
Well, Tony, if it were that simple, none of us would be having this conversation. Just telling it to shut up often makes it louder and more persistent, like a child demanding attention. The key is not to fight it, but to acknowledge it. Say to yourself, "I hear you, inner critic. I know you're trying to protect me, but I've got this." You're essentially thanking it for its concern, but gently taking back control. It's like acknowledging an email, but not letting it derail your entire day. Then, you can start to challenge and reframe those negative thoughts. For example, if the voice says, "You're not good enough to speak English well," you can reframe it by saying, "I am learning, and every mistake is a step forward. I am making progress." Focus on what you can do, not what you can't.
That's brilliant, Jenny. Acknowledging it without letting it take over. I like that approach a lot. It's about changing the conversation you're having with yourself. So you mentioned personal stories earlier. Do you have any real-life examples of when this voice tried to hold you back and how you managed to acknowledge and then move past it?
Oh, absolutely, Tony. I have a very clear example. When I first thought about starting my own online business, a few years ago, the voice was incredibly loud. It was screaming things like, "You don't know enough. You'll fail. Everyone will laugh at you. It's too risky. Just stick to your safe job." For weeks, I felt paralyzed. I would research, get excited, and then the fear would just overwhelm me. I almost gave up before I even started. But then, I remembered something I'd read about treating your inner critic like a separate entity. So I literally started talking to it in my head. I'd say, "Okay, I hear you, fear. You're worried I'll fail. That's a possibility, yes. But what if I succeed? What if I learn something invaluable even if it doesn't go perfectly?" I started focusing on small, actionable steps instead of the huge, scary goal. I told myself, "Just build the website. Don't worry about customers yet. Then, just write one blog post." Each small step quieted the voice a little more. And here I am, years later, running a successful business. It didn't silence it completely, but it definitely taught me how to turn down its volume.
Wow, that's such an inspiring story, Jenny. It really shows how taking those small steps can build momentum and confidence. I can relate to that feeling of paralysis. When I started learning English with podcast conversation, I had similar thoughts. My inner critic was saying, "Who are you to teach English? Your accent isn't perfect. Your grammar might slip. People will judge you." It was tough because I really wanted to share my passion for language learning. I had to consciously shift my focus. Instead of thinking about being a perfect teacher, I thought about being a helpful guide. I told myself, it's about the learners, not about me being flawless. And I remembered that even native speakers make mistakes. Embracing the idea that perfection isn't the goal, but rather progress and connection really helped me push through. It's a continuous process, honestly, even now. Every time I prepare for an episode, a little bit of that doubt tries to creep back in. But now, I recognize it faster and know how to kindly, but firmly, tell it to take a back seat.
That's a fantastic example, Tony, and it highlights a crucial point. This isn't a one-time fix. It's a skill you build over time, like any other muscle. The more you practice acknowledging and reframing, the stronger your self-belief muscle becomes. Another technique that I find incredibly powerful is something called positive affirmations. Now, I know some people might think they sound a bit cheesy, right? But it's not about just saying empty words. It's about consciously replacing those negative thoughts with positive, truthful statements. Instead of, "I'm terrible at English," try, "I am improving my English every day." Or, "I am a capable learner." You're essentially reprogramming your brain. And consistency is key here. It's like watering a plant. You do it regularly to help it grow.
I completely agree about affirmations, Jenny. It's not magic, but it's a tool for intentional thought. And when you combine that with action, even small actions, that's where the real change happens. Let's talk a bit about self-compassion. You mentioned earlier that the inner critic often comes from a place of wanting to protect us. So how does self-compassion fit into silencing it? Because it feels a bit counterintuitive to be compassionate towards something that's making us feel bad.
That's a really insightful question, Tony. And you're right, it might seem counterintuitive at first, but self-compassion is absolutely vital. Imagine a good friend comes to you feeling down, telling you they're not good enough. Would you agree with them? Would you tell them all their flaws? Of course not. You'd offer kindness, understanding, and encouragement. Self-compassion is simply extending that same kindness to yourself. When your inner critic is loud, instead of fighting it or hating yourself for having those thoughts, practice self-compassion. Acknowledge that you're struggling, that it's tough to feel that way. Tell yourself, it's okay to feel this. Many people feel this way sometimes. This softens the harshness and allows you to approach the situation with more clarity, rather than getting caught in a battle with yourself. It's about being your own best friend, not your harshest judge. This doesn't mean you're letting yourself off the hook for growth, but you're creating a supportive environment for that growth.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Being your own best friend, it reminds me of how important our internal dialogue is. If we're constantly being mean to ourselves, it's really hard to move forward. So what are some practical techniques our listeners can start using today to cultivate this positive inner dialogue?
Definitely. Beyond affirmations, which we just discussed, journaling can be incredibly helpful. When those negative thoughts pop up, instead of letting them swirl in your head, write them down. Seeing them on paper can give you perspective. You can then write a compassionate response to each negative thought, or even challenge it with facts. Another powerful technique is mindfulness. This isn't just about meditating. It's about being present and observing your thoughts without judgment. When you notice a negative thought, simply acknowledge it, without getting caught up in it. Oh, there's that thought again. You're not engaging with it, you're just noticing it, like a cloud passing in the sky. And finally, celebrating small wins. The inner critic thrives on negativity and focusing on what's missing. By consciously celebrating every tiny step forward, whether it's understanding a new English word, completing a small task, or just getting out of bed when you didn't feel like it, you're giving your brain evidence of your capability and building a more positive internal narrative. It reinforces, hey, I can do things.
Those are fantastic, actionable tips, Jenny. I particularly love the idea of journaling to get those thoughts out and then responding to them. It's like having a constructive conversation with yourself. So, as we wrap up, let's distill this into 3 key takeaways for our listeners. What are the most important things you want them to remember about silencing that voice?
Okay, so for our first key takeaway, I'd say, acknowledge, don't ignore. Asterisk, don't try to fight or suppress the voice. That often makes it stronger. Instead, just notice it. Say, I hear you, fear, or I recognize that thought. By acknowledging it without judgment, you take away its power. It's like shining a light on something scary in the dark. It often becomes less frightening.
That's a powerful one, Jenny. So don't pretend it's not there, but don't let it take over either. My second key takeaway, drawing from our conversation, would be button to pajamas, challenge, and reframe. Asterisk. Once you've acknowledged the thought, question its validity. Is it truly a fact? Or is it just an old belief or a fear? Ask for evidence. And then, consciously replace that negative thought with a more balanced, realistic, and positive one. For example, if your inner critic says, you'll never learn English, challenge it with, I am learning new words every day and improving step by step. It's about actively changing the script in your head.
Yes, absolutely, Tony. And for my third key takeaway, I would emphasize, Noah Putter practice self-compassion. Asterisk, be kind to yourself just as you would be to a good friend. When you hear that harsh inner voice, respond with understanding and warmth. Remember that making mistakes is part of learning and growing. Treat yourself with patience and encouragement, recognizing that everyone struggles with self-doubt at times. This self-kindness creates a supportive internal environment, making it much easier to move forward despite the voice.
Fantastic! Acknowledge, challenge, and reframe, and practice self-compassion. Those are 3 incredibly valuable points that our listeners can start applying right away. Jenny, this has been such an insightful and inspiring conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and practical tips with us today.
My pleasure, Tony. It's been a truly engaging discussion. I really hope our listeners feel empowered to start noticing that voice and taking small steps to manage it. Remember, you are stronger than your doubts.
Indeed. And to all our listeners out there, remember, silencing that voice isn't about eliminating it completely. It's about learning to hear it, understand it, and choose not to let it control your actions. Your journey to speaking English confidently, pursuing your goals, or simply being kinder to yourself starts with taking that first small step. Don't let those internal doubts hold you back from your potential. Keep practicing these strategies. Be patient with yourself. And remember that every small effort makes a big difference. You've got this. Thank you for joining us on Learning English with Podcast Conversation. We'll catch you next time.